Well, hey there. You've stumbled upon the intersection of internet quandaries and psychological insight. Welcome to Veritas Views on AITA, where the quirks of the internet meet the expertise of Veritas Psychology Partners.
I'd like to introduce my colleague, longtime friend, and business partner, Dr. Daniel Kessler, whose intellect is only matched by his wit.
And when I need a thoughtful voice of reason with a deep understanding of all things psychological, go to Dr. MacBride for answers, which is why I'm happy to introduce her as my partner at Veritas and in this podcast. Gayle, I am looking forward to your insights.
If you've never visited Reddit, you might not know what "Am I the Asshole" is. In short, someone posts a scenario and asks readers, who's the asshole here? And readers let them know what their final judgment is. Neither Dan nor Gayle have seen or read the topic they're about to discuss, so they're hearing and reacting to this cold. And if you're joining us for the first time, or simply need a reminder, stick around through the credits for the bonus conversation. Are you ready?
I'll ever be.
Yeah.
All right.
Go.
Let's try this one. Am I the asshole for letting my 17-year-old daughter sneak out? And then the writer goes on. Letting. I know.
Letting?
That's what caught my eye.
All right, let's hear it.
My daughter turns 18 in a couple of months. She came to me and asked if she could have the experience of sneaking out of the house. She told me who she'd be with, what she'd be doing, and when. I said yes, but I did not tell my husband, her stepfather. Well, she didn't put her screen back on the window, and when my husband noticed, he came to talk to me about it. I told him that I gave her permission to sneak out. He wants to punish her. I said no because I gave her permission. He is really upset and looks like this is going to ruin Thanksgiving. She is a good kid, currently has all A's.
She asked to sneak out. I don't think we needed that line in there, but thank you. Go on.
Yeah.
He's been in her life since she was 5, and sometimes we butt heads about parenting styles. But I just wanted to ask, am I the asshole?
Well, before we even jump into this is not about this. This is about we often butt heads about parenting styles.
Absolutely.
And so much of what we see in our office isn't about the thing. I think this is clearly about the previous 12 years of them butting heads about parenting.
And I think there's a real complication here between not only just parenting styles, but parenting roles. You and I both know that step parenting is different than parenting biological children or adopted children, right? Mm-hmm. It's a totally different role when you serve in that role as step parent.
Right. And it's an interesting and confusing role because that step parent is a parent, but at the same time often doesn't have, and it really depends on the relationship. Sometimes that step parent has that full parental, everything is the same as the biological parent, but more often than not, the step parent is sort of like parent adjacent.
Yeah. I think you once told me parenting via.
Yeah.
Right. The other.
Yeah. You end up like, would your mother be okay with that as a step parent frequently,
Right. I like the example of your dad wants you to eat your broccoli. Like,
right.
I don't need you to eat your broccoli. I don't care. I don't give 2 fucks, but your dad's going to want this. And we need to, be on board with his expectations.
And that step parent role so often is more like the step parent can be a full-fledged parent when it comes to the fun stuff.
Yes.
But when it comes to the discipline, that's more challenging. But that also creates a natural tension if that step parent isn't or doesn't feel comfortable or isn't, because of the family paradigm, comfortable with discipline, then they end up sort of feeling like they can't do something that they want to be able to do. Mm-hmm. And they're stuck.
Yeah. And nuances with all of this. I mean, our families are wonderfully complex, right? Because sometimes you have a step parent and no other biological parent present in the child's life. And at other times, the step parent is also a second or, maybe even third parent, right? Mm-hmm. Or fourth parent. And so those dynamics get really complicated. And then I think you also have to consider the relationship with that non-custodial in the moment parent, right? Or the biological parent that's not present for the particular, for lack of a better word, offense or problem.
Yeah. Now, if it's okay with our narrator, the reality here is that if this couple came in to see me, I would be going, I don't even want to go into, and we will, by the way, go into who's the asshole here, but I wouldn't even want to go into that right away. I don't want to start with how have the last 12 years of your parenting been, and what are the frustrations each one of you has experienced, and what's been maybe strike that, starting with what's been the good stuff about parenting in the last. Thank you. Yeah, I saw the look on your face.
Yeah.
I saw you're going to call me out on that.
Yeah, because you always want to start from a place of strength. What do you guys do well? What are some things that you guys have navigated successfully in this parenting journey, in this, in a blended family, right? Then you build on that.
Right. Because this absolutely is not the first time they've had this conflict. This is coming up over this one event, but it's absolutely not the first time that this conflict has come up with them around parenting and around which parenting choices they make, and the differences of opinion, and the stepdad wanting to punish or maybe wanting to reward, and the mom having some disagreement, and I suspect there's also sometimes in the past where decisions were made where the other one wanted to have input but didn't have input, and I'd want to explore all of those after, as you say, Gail, exploring the times when they navigated things really successfully and well.
Yeah. And I might even spend some time with them exploring that dynamic and the places they haven't gone where they wish they could go, right? And where they're feeling maybe a bit limited. And all to the end of this individual will be 18 very soon. Are there other children in the home where this conversation is going to benefit? Or do we just need to really more heal the loss and the sadness of what didn't happen between this couple as they were parenting? If this is the last child to leave the nest, maybe some of this just is more repair work than it is future problem solving.
Yeah, that's a good point. I feel the need to I want to bring mom in and sit down and go, are there other kids at home? I mean, do you have a kid together as well as this child? Are there other kids? Does he have kids that you've been step parenting? What are the dynamics over the years? And I think what you raised there is a really important question. What will be the goal? Are we looking, as you said, are we looking to repair something? Are we looking to change things so you all do them differently or better in the future?
Yeah.
Or do you just want to know whose fault it is? Which is my least favorite question when couples come in.
Well, I mean, the problem with that is, and I tell couples this all the time, and I know they get super frustrated with me, but you're both right. I mean, it's rare that couples come in where they're totally in the wrong. It's a matter of perspective. The Gottmans do this great exercise with couples where they have couples sit on either side of each other of an object, right? And usually it's like a plant, right? And they ask the couple to each draw the plant that they see in front of them. So they spend some time just, sketching this out and creating this still life of a plant, right? And then they get a chance to look at each other's drawing, and they're very different drawings. And I used to have a plant in my office that was great because the sunlight comes in from one side and not the other. So it's always really kind of scraggly and anemic on one side and really full and beautiful on the other. And I would show couples, okay, I wouldn't actually have them do the drawing exercises, but just look at this and imagine what you would draw. And then imagine what it would look like if you looked at your spouse's drawing, not from an artistic ability standpoint, but just how you've drawn the same plant. And how you're both right. It isn't about creating right or wrong or, someone's winning or losing. That's, frankly, if we're trying to figure that out, we've probably lost the fight. It's really about understanding how your spouse is right and how you can lean into their perspective a bit while also negotiating on what is incredibly important to you in this particular situation. How do you maintain that?
Yeah. And I'm going to do something awful and bring us back to the question. Because this is so much fun. But the question at hand was, who's right? Essentially, who's right? And I think you really underscore that beautifully. They're both right.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly, she should have told him, hey, daughter came to me and asked about this experience. So I told her it was fine. And that would have been a reasonable thing to do. In that situation. As I see him kind of being miffed, but I also see her going, my daughter asked me to do this thing. It's no one's being harmed by it. Sure, I'm going to say okay. And I could see him not even
the last 12 years, right? Is my daughter? I get to make the decisions as opposed to collaborating on our parenting.
And that often is that often is the co-parenting or biological parent, step parent, or adoptive parent, step parent situation where the one a parent feels the authority to make the decisions and go ahead. But I could see this happening in a two biological parent situation where
for sure.
one goes, this is a totally reasonable thing they're asking. And like in my own case, I could see like just not even thinking to say anything about it.
Yeah.
Like this is such a non-thing, like, oh shit, I was supposed to tell you? Yeah, of course, that makes sense. Yeah, I get it.
Oh, for sure. The argument I would
see.
have with my husband about our two biological children would be, you just needed to communicate, right? Like, I feel really out of the loop if this happened, and it was occurring in our house. I probably would have gone along with it. Now I'm pissed you didn't include me. You didn't communicate with me.
Yeah. But I love that the daughter here thought that she should go ahead and take the time to ask mom, hey mom, is it okay if I sneak out and
like getting called by kids at high school.
Oh, no, that happened. That did happen. We wanted
Right?
High school cheerleaders wanted a TP for one of our older kids, wanted a TP the house, and we got a call like, hey, we want to TP your house before the big game. Is it okay? And I'm like, you're asking my permission?
This is the best.
So nice of you to do.
Good kids.
Yeah.
They're respectful, and they want to have that kind of dream of fun that probably you and I had, except we were considered naughty. Although I know what tricks you were up to.
Yeah. No, I definitely snuck
you
out.
were just sneakier
for sure. And if my kids are listening, I never snuck out of the house without permission.
You didn't. Apparently, you just got good permission and set reasonable, very broad expectations.
Yeah, we'll call it that. So.
I was just going to jump in and say, so it sounds like we're winding up. Dan, where do you settle? What's your judgment if you had to pick one of those?
I don't know that anyone's an asshole here. I think that there's some clear communication issues with this couple. And I suspect there's some history here worth exploring and getting into that we're not getting. And I think that history might tell us a lot about how this couple has navigated this. And as Gayle said, this may be an opportunity to do some reparative work around how they've dealt with really tough questions in the past. I struggle to call anyone an asshole here. I think probably it's better if mom had told stepdad. It would have been a really cool thing. And I think that it would be, and I want to know, like, what's the history that's creating that strong reaction on his part? Like, there's something else there that I think it might be worth respecting and honoring. That's something else that's there, and trying to figure that out, because I don't think this is about the thing. This is about other stuff. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. Gayle.
I completely agree. I don't think there are assholes here. I really would have liked to have seen the mother do something different with her partner in terms of being more communicative and have a bit better plan between the two of them of how that dynamic is going to work. I also would love, and maybe this is a little controversial, I would have loved the step parent to have created a bit more of a moment of vulnerability and use an opportunity for an I feel statement here. I feel really hurt that you didn't include me in this decision, because that goes a long way to having the skills for that kind of conversation at home before you ever come to our office, right? We can unpack 12 years of parenting, but that's a kind of a big job and lots of repairs to be done. Really, those I statements are a great way to make some important headway in the hard conversations at home. I always use the I feel, I need, right? And if you can always front load that with a compliment, then you've got fertile ground for liking and respect. And you move forward with your genuine, honest, emotional experience and a very clear statement of need. I don't like the word don't in there because that does leave lots of room for things that it's not going to be, right? So I feel really hurt that I wasn't included in this conversation. Next time, I just need you to let me know what's up so that I don't lose my shit when I see the screen gone. Like, I'm already pissed and now this isn't helping, right? So just let me know a little earlier. Shoot me a text. I'll be cool.
Yeah. And underscoring that I mean, he wanted to punish her. I want to punish her, is what he was saying, or right? She's saying he wants to punish her. You punish someone for doing something they're not supposed to have done. It sounds like he's angry. I don't know that his anger is directed correctly.
I was just having that same thought too, right?
Yeah.
I really think it's directed at his spouse.
Right. The anger,
He
and
can't punish her.
I'm not saying that he
Punishing
should
her
be
daughter.
angry. I'm not saying he should be angry at her, but he is angry at her. And he's
For
angry
sure.
at her because he's having the thought she shouldn't have done that. And if you have
Mm-hmm.
the thought she shouldn't have done that, or he shouldn't have done that, you're angry.
Mhm.
So he's angry and kind of misdirecting this anger. And part of the question we've been talking about is like, should he be angry in the first place? And that's a whole nother thing. But he is angry, and I think exploring that feeling a bit and trying to understand it better is going to be a good step for this couple. And I love I feel like that's a good way of doing this.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the internet
what did
picked up
Red say?
on, yeah, they picked up on some of the things that you guys were talking about. But I think I don't know, often what I enjoy about the Am I the Asshole posts is they generally do a really good job on picking up on nuance. And this one, it seemed like people in general were really overwhelmed by how adorable it was for the daughter to ask permission to sneak out.
It is
I
adorable.
totally get that. That
I
was
was
adorable.
avoiding the word adorable, but let's just call it what it is. It's adorable.
Right.
So the overwhelming response was not the asshole, your daughter was cute, blah, blah, blah. But the ones that were kind of interesting were the ones who said, everybody sucks here because your daughter put you in the middle of the relationship and caused you to cause a problem. The husband was looking, as you said, somebody to punish and misplacing that anger. And the mother should have let the stepfather in. And so that was one of the arguments that came up a couple times.
I'm going to disagree on the daughter's point. I think she went to the parent who is almost certainly the person who gives her permission things primarily, and was fine there. I can go along very mildly with mom should have told stepdad, and a little bit stronger if stepdad should have been more chill about the whole thing. But I don't think this
put
merits
kids in
an
the middle
everyone
of
choosing.
That's no matter if she's about to be 18, that is an unfair position to put that child in.
Yeah. I think kids, regardless of biological, non-biological, step, adoptive, kids go to a parent for permission frequently. Sometimes it's because they're the parent most likely to say yes. And sometimes just they're the parent who happens to be handy and around because kids aren't good at going, oh, I think I should wait until later to ask this question, because they tend to be impulsive, even 17-year-olds. So I
would say
just
one caveat. Mom could have said, hey, I think this might be an issue for whatever she calls stepdad. I'd love for you to have the conversation with him because I think it's best if it comes from you. Right. And then he and I'll talk about it. That would be the only thing where you maybe give her the responsibility of the voice to go to him, but not the responsibility to keep the relationship harmonious, but more her relationship to her step parent.
I'm gonna respectfully disagree.
That's okay. You do all the time.
I think that I just think that this is one of those situations where I wouldn't think that anyone would even think, like, I wouldn't think to even it's just one of those things that, like,
I'm just saying it is one possible option that if you were going to say, hey, the daughter had any responsibility here, it's not to the marriage, but it may be to her relationship with her step parent. But that is a mild maybe in my camp, not a like you must do, or she should have considered it or anything.
Yeah, on a scale of 0 to 10, that's like a 0.5 to a 1.
Sure, I can agree with that.
Yeah, it's so all right.
Okay. The last thing maybe worthy of note was so many people also commented on just general confusion about who the father wants to punish and why, what the daughter would even be punished for, why the mother didn't tell the stepfather, like all of, there were lots of questions asking for more information, but you guys definitely hit on all of the important things, I think.
Well, my biggest question is it really sneaking out?
No,
if you get
it's not
any kind of permission, like it's now no longer sneaking out. It is now I've got my mother's permission to leave via a window and come back at some unknown amount of time, right? Whether she got an extension of a curfew or something like that, but that's not sneaking out. There was no sneaking happening here.
Right. She's done nothing wrong. Jumping to even further, let's say that we have a curfew here in Minnesota, and it's a midnight curfew, at least in my town. And let's say I give my 17-year-old the permission to come home at 1 a.m. And it's possible I've done that. And he gets pulled over on the way home by a police officer. I've given him permission to do that, and we may be jumping into a whole new thing, but I don't think someone else can be mad at him. I couldn't be mad at him for being out when I've given him permission to. I don't think. I'm still going to make him pay the fine because it's still his choice to be out. But I can't be really mad at him for being out. I'm just going to have him out. But I would apply the consequence, like, it's still your choice to be out. I'm assuming there's a fine. I have no idea. None of my kids have ever gotten caught after curfew. So
yes.
Anyway, bottom line, she's got permission.
Yeah. So it's not sneaking. So now we go back to
it's not-
stepfather has nothing to punish because she didn't do anything
Yeah.
that was wrong.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you so much for another riveting debate and a glimpse into the collective conscience of Reddit. Remember, morality is often shades of gray and not just black and white.
Truth is stranger than fiction. Stay true, stay strange.
And join us next time as we wade through another intriguing internet quandary.
Stick around through the credits for the bonus conversation about the seemingly random items in the therapist's office and the stories behind the objects.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gayle MacBride at Dr. G. MacBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. Credits. Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing this show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael MacBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. MacBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.
Thanks for listening. As promised, here is the bonus conversation where one of them is going to ask the other about something in their office.
So, Gayle, you got a rock in your office. Tell me about the rock in your office.
The rock in my office that sits on display on a side table is a rock, and it says, "Nothing is written in stone." I got it one year for Mother's Day, and I thought it's hilarious because it sort of reflects parenting, right? As much as you think that you're going to know how you're going to handle something, or you've handled it one way, there's always a pivot, right? So it kind of is reflective of the challenge of parenting. And I think also just kind of what we've been talking about today is shades of gray, right? When we expect something to be firm, we have to go through life and understand that it may change. So despite this mantra being written in stone, I don't think anything in life is really written in stone.
And I love that it's written in stone that something was written in stone, which is just, I find that terribly amusing.
And it's such a heavy rock. It's such a heavy rock. I occasionally will use it in a bit of a demonstration with individuals in my office, but I've had to be careful through the years because it's really heavy. And if you have any weakness in your arms or pain in your elbow, like I actually won't hand it off. It's a good sized rock, and it's fairly heavy. So
all right,
it's one of my prized possessions.
All right,
that's what we got.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Tune in next week.
We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners.